Like, we were even talking to my wife the other day, like, how many kids do we want to have? And it's like, why would we want to have more? Like, what else am I going to do with my life? Like, that's my point of view. What else am I going to do? Build a business, have some alone time, go on vacation? Like, who cares? Like, I literally don't care about those things, because when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to be like, oh, thank God I've got all these children and all these grandchildren, and they still love the Lord. Amazing. I'm good to go. Thank God.
Aloha, everyone. We are so pumped for today's episode. If you have any single friends, please send this episode to your single friends. We're going to be talking about dating in 2025.
Oh my.
It kind of feels like the wild, wild west, but there's hope. And today's episode is designed to bring you hope and encourage you to just keep putting along. And we're cheering you all on to find your husband or wife and to be encouraged in this area. And hope you enjoy today's episode.
Aloha. All right, welcome back to All Things Possible. Adam, my wife Bethany, and we're joined today by Curt. Thanks for joining, man.
I'm super excited to be here, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
So before we started pressing record, you mentioned 4 children. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you passionate about? What gets you excited to wake up each and every day? And let's go.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it, honestly. I think that family, as being one of the biggest purposes and enjoyments and ways of sanctification, is the greatest thing. And I've been blessed to spend a lot of time having to work through the family issues, because I started off terribly, like really, really badly as a husband, as a father. And that's most of my story. So I feel very blessed that today I can tell you that I got 4 kids, 12 through 2, 3 boys, and finally a girl. That was an answer to prayer, though we would have been happy with just
3 boys and a girl? Are you kidding me? That's us too.
Yeah, right? It's awesome. Did you guys have a girl last?
Yeah, we have 3 boys, and then we had
It's
a girl.
so different.
It's
so different and so amazing.
She's arguably the best, too.
It's just, there's something about her that brings us all together. Like, she gets us all, like, all eyes on Alea, all eyes on baby girl. And it's like this thing that, this beautiful human that just wraps everyone around her adorableness and gets us all like in unity in this like most beautiful, sweet, innocent way.
Yes. Yeah. Our boys totally rallied around Victoria as well. I brought them in when she was first born. I said, now you've got someone to protect. And they just went, poof. And it's been like that all since then. So that is the majority of my time. I mean, other than identifying as a Christian, I identify next as a husband and then a father. So I've been married for 13 years now, and we've got, like I said, those 4 kids. And otherwise, I'm a business owner. I run a couple of businesses. I'm out here on the West Coast, and I'm trying my best to live a simple, quiet life and wait on the Lord.
Isn't that what we all want?
Right. You know what? It's hard though when your mind goes a million miles a minute and you want to start companies, you want to do all these things. It's been a challenging season for me to just be like, is this good enough? And can I wait on the Lord here? And so anyway, that's sort of a meta narrative of my life right now, where I'm trying to do some more, and then God's just like, dude, chill. What happens in that time of waiting, I don't know yet, but that's where I'm at, and enjoying it with the family and the kids and the church family. So that's a little bit.
Well, right on. I appreciate you being humble, like saying at the beginning, like, hey, we don't have it all put together right away. And just it's important to be able to be teachable and allow ourselves to grow through that process. So, dude, yeah, you have a very similar situation with 4 children. We're
coming up on 13 years as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm
kind of tripping on the similarities right now.
Right.
3 boys and a girl, married 13 years. Like, we might need to have a barbecue one of these days.
Yeah, it's hard to meet in the middle, so we'll have to pick a place.
What are you seeing in culture as far as dating in 2025?
So the dating culture in 2025, my goodness, it seems to me that we've sort of lost the understanding of what the point of dating even is in this day and age. And it's become very much it's become a dehumanized sort of thing with the way that the apps are, in my point of view at least, because you just have this endless scroll that you don't have to know anything, you don't have to care at all, you don't have to see the person in the eye and say like, you know what, it's just not going to work for me, and you have some skin in the game, but it's just like this infinite, individualized feed, much like the way we consume media these days, that I get whatever I want whenever I want it. And that's problematic for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that when you get into a relationship, if you do find one this way, that doesn't typically work. I don't know if you guys have found that, but for me, when I'm like, you know what, I want to do it my way, there's wife, there's kids, there's all these people who are like, I don't think so. Not to mention, we're supposed to die to ourselves. So that's a huge problem that I see. And I think I really pray that we're starting to see a little bit of a subculture develop that says, you know what, I'm noticing this and it's gross. Because otherwise it's like you're looking at people as pieces of meat, because what do you see on those dating apps? Like I haven't used one because thank God I was married long enough ago not to have to go through this. Right. But I know people, even good friends, who have got married on dating apps. So I'm glad for the people that works for, but you typically only see their picture. And so you're making this judgment based on whether or not I would like to basically have physical relations with this person. And, is that an important part of marriage? Sure, absolutely. But is it the only and the first thing without knowing anything about that person? And so what are we saying about relationship? What are we saying about marriage? What are we saying about humanity at this point? Is that it's an interchangeable set of my preferences for what I'd like to do with my physical body. And that's just a sad state of affairs. But it also leads then to a very twisted expectation set. In other words, if I think that I'm just going to get what I want all the time, and I can swipe through 5,000 people to find the perfect one, if I do meet someone in person, or if I do meet this person that was online, and I find out that they're a little bit different than my imagination of them, I'm not going to have any grace, because I'm just going to go find someone else. And so what is the sticking point in relationship if you can always go to the next one? And it seems that there isn't one. And I think that there's a lot of people who go and they ghost. There's a lot of people who can't find anyone because the expectations are so high now, because number one, you can pick whoever you want. And number two, the culture, the society, the media has this portrayal of romantic love, I'll say, without the actual agape love, if you will, if God can give us that through a relationship. So there's a million problems there, but let me just stop and see if anything comes up for you guys.
Right away, it makes me think like the root problem is a separating of the intention of what God created for man and woman, a matrimony, marriage, a relationship that is exemplifying and personifying God's love towards us. It talks about Jesus loving the church as a bride and he being the bridegroom. So that seems like what you're seeing is this full separation, and from that it just spirals down into a degeneration of viewing each other as just pieces of meat, being like, well, they look nice, let's meet them and hopefully things work out, but not sticking to what God created.
Yeah, exactly. And I was even thinking recently, because I was looking through Reddit forums to get a sense of kind of what people thought about this issue. And there was even one person who had posted, I don't like to, I was going to say make love, but I don't like to have sex with someone for a little while at least, because I want to show them that I'm serious about this. And it was like at least until the third date. And people were like, oh my goodness, like you wait that long? And I was going like, what even is this? There's no recognition at all about the point of it. And I think that's what we talk about, at least in Unplugged and a lot of our content. It's like, what is the point of dating? And let's just really get clear on that. And for me, it's even asking this question for my children. Will I let, and I say that carefully, will I let my kids date? Well, what is the point of dating? And for me, I like to bring things as far back to first principles as possible, when possible. And, am I a perfect reasoner? Of course not. But it seems to me that the purpose of dating is to fairly quickly find out if this person has enough of the same stuff that you could build an entire life with. Can you repent to one another enough that you think you could do that for the rest of your life, while also creating this beautiful relationship and hopefully family with that? And if you think yes, and honestly, we could probably do that with way more people than we think. We don't have to be quite so specific about what we're looking for, because it's not about what you want necessarily anyway. Like you said, it's God's design for it. It's his design to show us the reality of Christ as the bridegroom and us as the church. It's so many more beautiful things. And it's like we say all the time, reject degeneracy and the hookup culture and get married. Like, that's the point of dating, and we've lost that so much, and the culture's lost that so much because the culture hates it. The culture hates families, the enemy hates families, and it's just destroying all this stuff. And I'm so sad for these people out there who want to get married so much. They've waited, even in some cases, for a career or something else, and maybe they can't have a family anymore. Maybe they can't find someone in their age range anymore. It's like, man, if we could normalize finding someone, not swiping 10 million people to find the right one, and to start to develop then what it takes to be in a relationship instead of waiting for perfection. That's my dream. So let's connect people who have a similar base of traditional values, and then somewhere along the line, let's help them, like you guys are doing, showcasing what it looks like to be a family. That's the encouragement that I want more people to see, because how many of us grew up with an intact family? I know I didn't. And I've had to learn it the hard way, and it was really hard for a long time. And that's one of the reasons that I even care to share on this, is because I want people to see that fatherhood, that motherhood, that family are like the pinnacle. When you ask about, masculinity and healthy masculinity, you were saying before, like the healthy masculinity, the pinnacle of that is fatherhood. And so that's what our young men should be striving for. And motherhood, that's what our young women should be striving for. Amen. And so many people miss that because they've literally never seen it. And it took me seeing a few people, and it's like, I didn't know it was going to be that awesome. So I think we really need to do a better job of that.
Have you found like this degeneracy of dating and marriage and the look on relationships? Have you found that infiltrating the Christian circle or communities?
Man, yeah, I would say yes. I can't answer this as an expert. I'm quite new in the faith. I've been a Christian for 3 years. I've been gone through, some pretty intense spiritual formation the last couple of years. And it does seem that nobody's really wanting to talk about this, I think, is the problem. It's hard to read the scripture that says what a husband and a wife are, because, it offends some people. What happens when you say the word submission and you can't explain that? What happens when you say the word, like to die for your wife? Like, how many people actually are ready to do that? Not very many. And so is that the problem? I'm not sure. Is it just that the culture has infiltrated so much of the modern Western church? I don't know, probably. And it's tragic, but it's definitely not just a worldly thing. And I think we really need to watch those of us in the church, that we can encourage those people who might have the worldly view of it, and not, be hard or overbearing, but just like, did you know this is the fruit? Like, you'll know them by their fruit. And that's, as imperfect as we are as a family, as imperfect as we all are as a family, like, at least see that I'm so much better off and able to repent more, even to be closer to God in my family, than if I was just going to do everything that I wanted to do.
You mentioned you've been married for 13 years now, right? And you became a Christian about a few years ago, and you said you started off really rough in your marriage. Like, would you be open to sharing a bit more of, like, you said you didn't have a good role model, and I'm sure marriage felt very hard. Like, even when you do have a good role model, marriage can be really hard. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to just hear a little bit about your personal journey and how you felt maybe 10 years ago compared to today.
Wow, yeah. Thank you for asking, because it is a story of redemption, so glory to God. When we got married, we were quite young, 22 or 23, and I'm so grateful for that.
Why'd you get married, though? Like,
because all the people that we were hanging out with were 10 years older, and they were married. Honestly, that is the truth. Like, that's the reason why we need to be going like, dude, marriage is amazing, to all the people who aren't, so that it makes it look cool. So anyway, honestly, that was a big reason for it, other than the fact that I met my wife, and it was just like, oh, she changed all my plans. My plan was finish university, get a degree, start working. When I'm 30, look for marriage. And I met her in university, and it was like, never mind. I'm just going to get married now. So, went to university and paid my way for a wife. So that was a nice benefit because I didn't use my actual degree. So anyway, we had people around us who were happily married, much older than us, and it was great. And we got married. But all of my problems that I was really good at managing, like control, like anger, like selfishness, like impatience, they started coming up as soon as we had our first son. And like that was just an awful time. It was a very tumultuous time. We moved, lost a bunch of friends for various reasons, and was starting a new business at the time. And I remember my son just starting to walk, 9, 10, 11 months old, and he'd walk into my room and I would get so livid. Like I can remember, it's hard to talk about. I can remember just yelling at him, yelling at my wife, like, I'm working in here trying to build this. Can't you get him out of here? And we didn't know what we were doing. The advice we were given from some people close to us was about the opposite of what I now see to be the truth. And so we were just floundering. Like everything that people were telling us was, oh, just keep doing this. It's fine. It's like, this doesn't feel fine. It feels like everything's terrible. And so we had our first son, and that was just, like I said, brutal. It was really, really bad insofar as I would get angry and be very controlling. But then as soon as I would know that I did something wrong, I would just retreat into myself and feel ashamed. And I would stay there for weeks on end. We had our second son, and I learned something about mindfulness, meditation, what have you. And it was for business. I thought it was going to make me more successful in business. But it actually stopped me from yelling at my son one day. And I was like, what is this? So I tried to go down that rabbit hole, and I did go down that rabbit hole a lot. We moved to Thailand in the meantime for a couple of years, and we're on this huge journey and adventure. But there was a point in Thailand where all of my habits, my gym, my quiet time, people that I knew, like I didn't even know where to get groceries. It was pretty intense to just move your family there. And I remember all of those structures collapsed, and I collapsed with them. I had built up what I thought was, oh, I'm getting to be a better dad on external things. And all my internals were still so screwed up. And I got to Thailand, yelled at my kids again, and, really scary. Like they were scared of me for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember just lying on the floor of our Thai apartment and like sobbing, like middle of the night, sobbing, kind of pounding the concrete ground. I can remember like just how cold the floor was there because everything was so hot, and just going like, I think I'm the worst part of my wife and kids' life. And that got me to the point where I was like, maybe it would be better for them, even though I know the statistics, maybe it would be better for them if I wasn't here. So that was sort of the darkest hour, I would say. That was, a few months to a year while we were living there, of just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore because I'm terrible for them. I didn't want to be, but I literally felt like I couldn't stop. And I see now it was just the grace of God that kept me along one day at a time, because I didn't become a Christian for, 7, 8 years after that. But slowly but surely, it became the biggest thing I had to fix. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about family, fatherhood, marriage now, is because if I didn't fix this, like it saved my life to fix it. Let's just say that. Because I could see what it was doing to my kids. I could see what it was doing to my wife. I felt what it was doing to me. And there was no way that family, which was the most important thing to me, and I say that with air quotes because it's like, dude, you're not acting like it. But somewhere in my heart, I knew it was supposed to be. So it was an unacceptable way of being for me not to fix it. And again, by the grace of God, we kind of got through it, moved back to Canada, found another couple things that helped, had a third kid. That really chilled me out because I was like, oh my goodness, things are different. There's a gap. He's so beautiful. And then I used to lead men's groups. I was really involved in sort of self-help and self-healing, and kind of a dark path, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of into that, even on both sides of the spiritual debate. But it was kind of a dark thing that I see now. But thankfully, out of nowhere, Christ comes along my path, and the rest is kind of history. Thank God.
What's so crazy too, like I want to pause on that self-help, like healing sort of stuff, is like a lot of the self-help leaders in America cannot keep their relationships together. Like you see they're like professing this and that, and like this is how you get healthier, and yet everything behind the scenes with them is crumbling. Like they're unable to maintain the foundations of life. And so it just seems like a bit of a show to me when I'm looking and I'm like, whoa, this person's supposed to be like the biggest health expert in America, and yet they can't even keep their relationships intact. And so, and like I found like in our relationship, when things aren't going good, like your health isn't benefiting from that. Like this high stress is not, part of good health. And so it seems just there's so many counter messages going on in that self-help, self-healing. It's very self-centered, very like about me. And yeah, I think definitely like being aware of that is so important. But it's so beautiful to hear that you came from such a dark place, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. And so many of us go through really tough times. And so to hear that like you love being married, you love being a father now, and you are seeing light on the other side. And then you never really got to the point where you eventually became a Christian. And how did that change things? And was that in itself its own journey as well?
Absolutely. So I've always tried to be a truth seeker. And that's a great label that a lot of people put on themselves. And ultimately, Christ is the truth. And so I was predisposed or something, or, I see God's hands all over my life now. But I had finally said, sort of to your point of family and all this amazing things happening to us, I looked around in my life and was like, we're kind of doing okay now. But all of the people I was interacting with were mostly single, like you said, even the relationship coaches, which is really funny. And I was the only guy in my surroundings, my men's groups, the leadership capacity I was in, who was married with kids. And all of my friends were like, oh, I'm just going to go on another retreat, another mushroom ceremony, another cacao ceremony, another meditation, this. And I'm like, dude, but last time you told me that it worked. Like, where are you going? So I made the choice to just step away. And it was in pride, honestly. It was like, I'm so good, I figured this out. This is amazing. And not a week later than I stepped back from all of this, did Christ come up on Instagram of all places. So as much as I rag on Instagram, there is saving grace in there, I guess. Yeah. So I saw a couple posts about Christ, and I was like, wasn't looking for it. And I kind of questioned. I was like, oh, I've never heard him like that, because I was used to the rosy cheeks, Jesus is my boyfriend, kind of soft.
Oh no.
And I was like, that can't be real, right?
My homeboy was probably one of the worst campaigns ever in Christian history.
I remember that too.
So I had that in the back of my head, and I didn't really have much exposure to it. So I started asking questions like, oh, well, what about this? I thought it was really smart. And thankfully the people I asked the questions to were very graceful and gave me a couple suggestions to look into. And I couldn't stop myself from reading more about it and listening to more about it and thinking about it, because I was trying to disprove it. So it's like, oh, I could never believe this. This is so dumb. And every time I'd read a book, it's like, oh, darn it, they answered all my questions. Okay, I'm going to come up with a new excuse. And it was 6 months of that. We finally went to church one day after a couple of, I'll say, interesting experiences. You know how these things happen. I'm reading. I somehow found my dad's old Bible. He's been passed for 10 years. I never even knew him as a, acting Christian. He wasn't like that when he was, when I knew him. Anyway, I'm reading through this Bible, and underneath Mark 6:50, I think it is, Jesus is walking on the water, and the disciples are scared, and he says, don't be afraid, it is I. But before I'd started reading that, I'd prayed. I'd never prayed before. I was like, okay, God, if you're real, show me. And here this was, the only part of my dad's Bible that was double underlined was, it is I. And I was like, that's the question that I just asked. And he's like, here I am. So that scared me. A couple months later, we finally went to church with friends of ours. It was exactly what I needed to hear. It was a pretty hard-hitting sermon. And my friend was like, oh, I hope he doesn't leave. And I was like, no, that was truth. That's what I needed to hear. And then, a couple days later, it just clicked. I was like, oh, this is real. And so from there, it's just been like, how much can I dive into this? Because it's everything that I've ever wanted. It's everything that I didn't know I wanted. It's the hole that nothing else can fill. I think we all have a father-sized hole to some degree in our hearts, and God is the only one that fills that, not drugs or women or money or success. And so that's been that, and it's changed everything. We've had quite an experience over the last couple of years as well. We just joined the Orthodox Church, which has been an exciting experience as well. So like things are just constantly changing, getting deeper, and just praise God. It's the only important thing. If you could pick anything, pick Christ.
Awesome. Well, we're super thankful that you found your path and that Christ was calling that in your life and your family. It's beautiful to know that even despite all the challenges that, he had a plan for you and your family throughout all that difficulty that you faced. And, it's going to be a strong point, a stronghold forever. And that's what's monumental for our relationship and for our family. And I pray that it will be monumental for many families and many relationships, because that's the biggest thing is like, it's hard to see families and relationships try to thrive without the forgiveness and mercy of Christ in their life. Like that is so crucial. We're not made to live without him. We need Jesus and his love in our life. And we've been on a really cool journey too. We're in the part of the LCMS, a Lutheran church, kind of that liturgical. We found a lot of like just depth and reverence and richness in that culture, and just the respect and appreciating God's word to the T. Not seeing this as something that is just for feeling good. This is truth that you can stand on. And so with your dating app, how do you weave that? Are you kind of weaving in more of this, like, even though it's not technically a Christian dating app, are you weaving in like these Christian values or the values that God has called us to?
Yeah, and the funny thing about how it's labeled is like 95% of the people on there are Christian, because what is a traditional value if not a Christian value?
Right.
And part of the reason why it's not an explicitly Christian dating app is because that's how Brendan, the founder, and myself were even introduced to Christianity, because we were both traditional. We were both conservative in our views, and it was like, well, this is right. And all it took was that one moment of seeing the glimpse of light that undergirded all of it. And so it's like, you know what? Come on. Why ever you have traditional values, they're going to lead you to Christ, I'm sure. So, we pray for that. And it's explicitly on there. Like everybody on the network is there to get married. And so you don't have to worry about like, oh, what are you here for? It's like to get married, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have joined. So it's like, that's the point. That's the extent all of our conversations we're having in there. Like I said, 90% of people are commenting from a Christian point of view. And that's the other thing too. There's a bit of a community aspect, unlike the swiping. So you get a sense of humans and you can actually talk to people instead of just looking at their picture. But yeah, everyone knows that there's a point to this, which is we want you off the app as soon as possible because you're married.
I've spent my whole life in the ocean, and I've learned, just like wearing a seatbelt or a helmet, safety matters. That's why my family and I use shark bands.
Shark Bands uses patented magnetic technology to deter sharks by disrupting their electroreception. Kind of like a bright light in their eyes that says, nope, not today, shark face. No batteries, no charging, just simple, effective peace of mind.
Whether we're surfing, swimming, or just splashing around, Shark Bands is our go-to for ocean safety.
You want to geek out on how it works? Dive into episode 14 for a deeper look at the tech.
And check the show notes for the link to Shark Bands, because your peace of mind in the ocean is worth it. Stay safe, stay stoked, and keep loving the ocean. I have a question. So I have a few really great friends who are single. A couple of them are my age, and then a couple of them are younger. And none of them, or I would say two of them, are definitely not on dating apps. What do you think? Like, do you think they should join the dating app, or do you think they should just keep charging and hope someone comes their way?
Yes, both. I think it would probably be a great idea to do both of those things. And I say that because these options are available. There are so many people today who have thriving marriages because they met someone online. So I am a great person to be saying this, by the way, and I'll just say that because I'm such an idealist, I would probably be like, oh no, I want to meet someone live and only live because I don't like the internet. That's just how I roll. But I've been so humbled recently with that attitude. It's like, dude, like you're not God. Like he's put you in 2025. There are dating apps. Why don't you sign up for all of them? Spend a couple weeks on them. And if you don't find anyone, great, but keep doing what you're doing locally as well. And that's the thing. If you're looking for this, for me, if I wanted this, I would hope to say that this would be my number one priority. And so go to all of the things, find all the places where people like you hang out. And there's a bunch of Christian dating apps. There's a bunch of, there's at least our traditional dating app, maybe one or two other ones as well. Like there's so many, even the big ones, if you can handle that, which maybe that's where my idealism goes like, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I would say, do all the
that.
things because it's 2025 and there will be someone out there.
Do you know what's awesome about your story too is about you found Christ online, like on Instagram, and to not like demonize the technology, the things that are out there. You know, you can go to the extreme of just like, I'm gonna no tech, and not be a part of the culture. Like there's, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this thing where it's easy to be a critic and just be like kind of push things away, but there is a point where like you said, we're in 2025. These things are here, and part of being a Christian is being a light in these spaces, and that's why we have this podcast. That's why you're on Instagram. It's like we need to be a light in these spaces. Like you are supplying a way, creating a way for Christians with or other traditional valued people to meet together in the way that people meet together nowadays online.
I just was curious, have there been any like standout stories of a couple finding each other on the Unplugged Dating Network that you'd be open to sharing?
100%. Keep in mind that it's only been open for like 4 months now.
Okay.
And so any results are like, oh my goodness, this is very exciting. The one that I'll share though is we had a woman early days say, I'm kind of interested in joining, but I'm in the UK. It looks like a lot of your members are in the States. I don't think this is the right call for me. And she clearly wanted to, but she was stopping herself. And Brendan just said, be part of the solution. Join, stick around a couple months, put your hat in the ring. Maybe more people will come. Anyway, we found out like 3 weeks ago that she is engaged to a guy she met on the app who's not even from around where she is, but she was open to marriage and relationship. And it's so important to the people on our app that we hear people relocating to meet and to get engaged and to get married. And so, especially in this day and age, when we are surrounded by people who aren't like us, honestly, like how many people do you know in your have traditional values in your town? It's getting lower and lower every year. So people open to relocating, to find someone like them, like, oh my goodness, please be open to that. So that's probably my favorite one. We just got another email last week about a couple who's like, yeah, can you cancel my membership? And we're like, oh, sorry. Like, no, we got married. Or no, sorry, we got engaged. And it's like, okay, yes, I will cancel that. Absolutely. That's
You're
what
like,
we're here
this is the best cancellation ever.
Yeah. So those things I'm hoping will continue to go ramp up over the coming months, because again, I'm thinking the 7 to 8 months will be the sweet spot as we start seeing people ramping up in the engagements.
Awesome.
Cool.
Is there any like where you found? I can't help but think about it. We live in a broken world. Do you find that there's people entering your website for bad reasons? Kind of like the creep, like bad intent, like who are not there to be who they say they are.
Well,
so
Adam's initial response to dating
like,
apps earlier, he was like,
there's a bunch
just
of creeps
on
in there,
there.
probably. There's a bunch of creeps creeping around.
So I'm like, you guys can't control that, so to say. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Are
it's the
you
same
browsing
as
there and making sure there's no weirdo.
I literally just had a conversation before this dealing with this exact issue, because just like walking outside, you'll notice that some human beings are creeps.
Yeah.
And so, do they all live online? Well, many of them do, but do they all live online in our dating app? I would say No, but we do have systems in place. And because it's a community, people are very sensitive to other people not getting creeped out if someone approaches them incorrectly. So we have a lot of self-governing that goes on. We've got a team of mods that are in there all the time. We've got, an internal Slack channel that compares people who are coming in versus the pictures that we reverse image search. And we've had a couple of people who showed up that way. So yeah, we have had a couple of those where we've kicked them out, banned them, etc. But again, people don't last very long because they get outed very quickly.
Nice. That's
good work, crew.
Good to hear.
I can't help but I am the sort of mom that I'm thinking about my sons, eventually entering into the dating pool, and I hope that they, are very open with Adam and I, and we're able to help cheer them on. I imagine you might be thinking about that sort of thing a little bit too. How will you encourage your children once they're in that age range of starting to look for a wife and your daughter for a husband? What's some of the encouragement you will put there? So for any of our listeners who are single, also encouragement to them, what would you encourage them in this season?
Yeah, for my kids, and I'll just touch on this briefly, I will be showing them and talking to them about this from now and from 5 years ago till they're married. So that's number one. Number two is, especially to the people listening, and as my kids get older, I will want them to be a catch. And that's hard to say because you are who you are in some respects, but also God's given you plenty of potential, made in the image and likeness of the creator of the universe. That's pretty big potential. And will we all reach our potential? Of course not. We will never be God, but there's so much that we can do to make the most of what he's given us, to not bury our talents. And so that's what I'll be encouraging my children with is do you even know what a wife or what a husband is looking for? Do you even know how to show up as a husband or a wife? And in some respects, no, you'll never will until you're married. But what does a good man do? What does a good woman do? Do you have skills that transfer over? Are you responsible? Are you respectful? Are you building yourself up? Do you have a good, and I'll say self-care routine, but really what I just mean is discipline and habits? Are you a catch, essentially? And are you the greatest man that your wife will ever know? Are you the greatest woman that your husband will ever know? And I think, we can only trust God's timing in bringing people to us as long as they're sort of going out there and looking at the same time. But the thing that we do have control on is how we show up and how we ready ourselves for that person. And so I just want them to be ready by taking full responsibility for their life, to look inside and say, you know what, do I have any struggles? Do I have any issues? Do I have any addictions that I need to make sure do not come into my marriage? Because now is the time to do that. This is fertile ground, if you're not yet married, to do the work on yourself so that you show up the best you can in the marriage and don't bring it down, make it even harder than it's going to be with the things that you haven't dealt with yet.
That's so crucial to have those conversations. And they're conversations that I'm sure you didn't have with your dad. I never had it with my dad. And it's encouraging to hear you say that, good for me to remind myself, I need to have those conversations with my sons so that they can step into that season with confidence and being prepared. What else was I going to say? But I think that's just so crucial.
Yeah, the things that I think about specifically with our boys, since they're a little older, so it will come sooner for them. But I think I was talking with my oldest son a couple of days ago, and I was like, one day you're going to be the leader of your household, so you need to be able to lead and show the way. And so I think of what does leadership look like for a man, and that means, being the one to show the way and be the first to take a step forward, or encourage your wife and children in their faith. So being a leader in the faith aspect. And just there's so much we could talk about here, but it was neat to see, I would say our eldest son, he has a natural kind of leadership tendency. He is very thoughtful. He thinks ahead, and I'm really excited for him to find a wife someday. I think he'll make a great husband and father, and he'll of course grow a lot between now and then. But yeah, it gets me really excited. I had one friend who, when it came to their daughter dating, she always had a buddy with her as she was courting, who, she was 18 and she started dating a young man to get married. And she always had someone alongside of them. So she had a twin brother, and he ended up being the third wheel on most of their dating season. And I thought that was amazing because essentially they're protecting their daughter from being taken advantage of. And I just think that was a really cool thought. And I think we've gotten so far from healthy dating that you really do have to think of protecting your daughter or son and setting them up for success in this area. And so along the way, I'm kind of like picking up little tips and seeing what some of the other moms out there that I respect that are doing their part in setting their children up for success. And it's kind of fun to think about matchmaking.
I remember what I was going to say too. Sanctification, just
yes.
the relationship, the marriage. So I agree, like preparing ourselves, having those conversations, but don't ever think, almost like the career thing, like don't be like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I'm not like perfect enough yet to step into this relationship, because no matter where you're at, you're never going to be perfect.
For sure.
And the way this relationship is set up, like I've grown so much because of my wife, because of what Bethany has called out in me and has called me to step into as a man, as a husband, as a father, and still is. Like I still have so much to grow through, and I'm just so thankful for my wife to like walk me through that, because I couldn't do it without her. Walk with me. Yeah. Because and then also the aspect of that sanctification, there's that element of needing grace and mercy with one another, understanding each other's needs and understanding where we're at. Is just so crucial. So I just want to encourage y'all too, that you're never going to arrive to some certain point in your life where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to get married. But there's always this growing, the sharpening of steel, iron sharpening iron. And
I love the idea too of young men getting mentors. So between the age of like 15, I mean, ultimately dad should be mentor, but maybe there's also another father-like figure that speaks into their life and helping them prepare for this next chapter as they become young men. I think that's like super a fun idea, and it's kind of lost in culture as well. A lot of young children are dating prematurely, and they end up making a lot of mistakes along the way that really bring a lot of hurt into the marriage, I would say. And so I don't know, do you have any, for the person who's like, I don't agree with y'all, I want to do what I want to do when it comes to dating, I don't really care about saving sex for marriage, do you think there's benefit to waiting for marriage and to stepping into that union? Because, divorce is such a rampant thing too. And I think a lot of people see their parents divorce and they're like, why bother? Like, why bother even trying? It never works out anyway from what they've seen maybe in their friend group and their own parents. I just think like there's a lot of people who kind of have that negative kind of connotation towards marriage and commitment because it seems almost like impossible now. Like, what would be your plea to that person who's like kind of doubting and like that's just too much?
My goodness, there's so much pain in someone like that, and I would relate to that only because there's so much pain in all of us. But if you have something like that, I mean, let's think about that, at least from our perspective. If you don't have a faith perspective, then you won't maybe agree with this. But if the point of this is to love and to self-sacrifice and to create life, why wouldn't you want to do that? It's the ultimate For most people, I would say it's the normative thing that most people are designed to do. And so anything getting in that way means that you have some pain very likely around that. Probably in a parental relationship, perhaps abuse. And so that would be the thing that I would just say, if that's you, then I'm sorry. And that doesn't color your entire future. There is a path, there is a redeemer. His name is Jesus. And those things can be healed. And so that's like, for some reason, I can go into all sort of tactical things, but I think that's the thing that people probably need to hear is that like the pain doesn't have to define you. It can be healed. Doesn't mean you forget about it. Doesn't mean you're not you, but through that pain that's stopping you from wanting the most beautiful thing in the world, like, my goodness, that has to be bad. And so let us be an example. It's not perfect. It's not like you should get married because it's the only perfect path. It's like, no. But this is the path for most people to get the most out of life, because like we were even talking to my wife the other day, like, how many kids do we want to have? And it's like, why would we want to have more? Like, what else am I going to do with my life? Like, that's my point of view. What else am I going to do? Build a business, have some alone time, go on vacation? Like, who cares? Like, I literally don't care about those things, because when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to be like, oh, thank God I've got all these children and all these grandchildren and they still love the Lord. Amazing. I'm good to go. Thank God. Right. But if you don't, like, it's not even a wonder anymore. There's articles being written in places like, I think the New York Times or other places like that, about people who are grandchildless, not by choice, but because their children didn't have kids, and it's crushing to them. And so imagine, those people aren't just like some random subset of humans. They're you, because you're also a human. And is that what you'd like to get at the end of your life, is just this lack, this nothing? Because nothing fills that other than Christ, but Christ also designed us to, multiply. And so anyway, for people who think it's not worth it, okay, make a list of what is then. Like honestly, like really ask yourself what's more worth it than that. And if it has if you feel like you're stopping yourself because it's too hard to go through your pain, there's a way through. There's always a way through. For me, I mean, my story is like whatever. There's hardly any suffering or pain there, but it felt dark to me. A lot of people have a lot worse. I'm sure you guys share a lot of stories on here that are encouraging. So really ask yourself the question, what's better than this? And go from there. And I'll pray to God that he gives revelation, because ultimately that's the only way we're going to do anything.
I love it.
Man.
I love your heart for family. I love your heart for marriage. I too share very much excitement towards being a grandma one day. I see it in my mom in particular, just how much she loves her grandchildren and how they literally get her up every day, and that's like her joy and her pride, and she's just having the time of her life. Like, this might be the prime of her life right now, spending time with her grandchildren. Like, I should ask her that, actually. But I've always been kind of a grandma nerd. Like, I just cannot wait to be a grandma. So I'm instilling in my children, like, you got to give me some grandchildren, because that's what I'm waiting for.
Absolutely. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, well, it's time to have kids as soon as you get married, and as many as you can have, because that's just the way of it. And that's very manly, by the way. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a whole nother bunny trail, but I see a lot of common, like, statements online of like, it's too expensive to have grandchildren, and I think that is a pain point for a lot of people. Like, they don't see a way, and maybe they're in a place where financially it's really, really hard. And maybe we save that for another podcast, because that is a whole nother bunny trail, and we do hope to kind of conquer some topics around that subject, because I want to just acknowledge that it is different now today, like, especially the way the US dollar has been so kind of taken advantage of, and like people are losing a lot because of the way the government has taken the dollar and
that's a
basically inflated it.
Go.
Anyway, not for today. But I feel for people who are very much so believing in that narrative, and
being scared to commit and have a family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, we're not going to go down that today, but keep a lookout, because we do want to tackle that topic. But Curt, thank you so much. And y'all, you need to check out the Unplugged Dating app for finding traditional marriage. And is there anything else you want to kind of leave us with, or any, like you said you were doing something around dads a dad program. Was that something in your past that you've been working
That
on?
was a past thing. Yeah, that's a big story. I just, what you just said about the price, just look up Psalm 37:25 for that one. If you think that there's not enough money, there is. But in terms of that, yeah, the unpluggednetwork.com is if you want to check that out. And otherwise, I've got a podcast agency called Proclaim Podcasting. But the dad stuff was, a different season. But that's a huge story too, so I won't get into it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for encouraging us with your story and just encouraging all the young folks out there to really dive into what the Lord has for you. Read his word, be grounded in his truth, and know that we have a Savior that loves us and he's going to be there for us.
There's hope. So thanks everyone for listening, and aloha, Curt. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Curt, for sharing your story. The journey was incredible, and just him being so vulnerable about his life story was awesome. And a big thank you to our listeners for leaving reviews and spreading the word about all things possible. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you for the encouraging words, and we're going to just keep on pumping out some great content that we hope will encourage you. Thank you so much.